Hello and welcome to another edition of our podcast. I am excited to be joined by Darryl Baskin, who is coming to us out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He is with eXp Realty, and Darryl is one of those that was born with real estate in his blood. He is a second generation realtor. He has been in the business since he was 16 years old, and his background covers the gamut. Everything from commercial to investment to property management to residential. He has also held all sorts of positions in all throughout the industry as it relates to leadership, agent, training, all of it, you name it. So very few people have the actual background that Darryl does, and it's very impressive. In addition to all of that, Darryl also holds leadership roles with the Oklahoma Association of Realtors Grievance Committee, as well as the Rules and Regulations Committee. He was appointed by two governors in the Contractors Industry Board for Home Inspector Review Committee. That's a very powerful appointment right there. It is only given to a select few people who really know their stuff as it relates to construction and home inspectors and all of that. He also has been on the board of the court-appointed special advocates. He has been honored as a who's who in luxury real estate. He has also been recognized as a 40 under 40 honoree. Most notably in his philanthropic work, I would say Darryl also has served as a foster parent for 20 children and has adopted 7 of his own. So welcome, Darryl. Thank you very much for being here. I'm excited to get to know a little bit more about what you bring to the table because you bring a lot. And we're here to talk to you today about your journey as a certified divorce real estate expert, a CDRE. So you have been a CDRE now for a number of years with us, and you have embraced, all of the things that come with that. You have embedded yourself in your family law community and really have made a difference there. So I want to talk with you a little bit about that, but what was your life like before becoming a CDRE, your business, and what really led you to do this kind of work?
Thank you, Laurel. I'm so excited to be here to share. My story was I was young and successful in real estate for maybe a decade. 10 years I'm going along selling houses and selling through divorces. I would notice some of these challenges. I did not understand the difference between a regular sale and a divorce sale. Some of them wouldn't close, and I just started to get a little bit better, but I didn't understand the divorce process. I look back at that and see how much more I could have done for people when I had a full understanding of the process. What brought that to light for me was when I went through my own divorce. I had 8 children, multiple companies. I don't like to say this, but it's very important for here, but other people would look at me and think, oh, I had the world by the tail and so successful and anything that everybody could have wanted. And my own life was falling apart at the time. With all of these things, I had a very complex situation, and I had to get out. My life was a very difficult situation at home. So in my personal world, I walk into an attorney's office, and I am just crying, and I said, I think I have to file for a divorce. And we talked about it a little bit, and he said, I did not want to do this. And he said, this is the process you're going to go through. So my personal story is I stopped and I said a prayer. And I know I kind of freaked him out because he was like, oh, what is going on here? And I said, I want to get through this. God, help me get through this without bitterness and anger so that I can have a life on the other side that's good for my kids and my family is restored, even though we may not be together as a couple. That was kind of a strange thing, and it may seem somewhat irrelevant here at the moment. But as I got through this very painful part of my life, I wondered to myself, and I knew real estate. I had multiple properties that had to be sold. It was devastating to me because I saw the future value of them. And the legal community was kind of coming in and took control of what was happening in my life. And I thought, well, how do people do this if they don't have my professional background? We're talking about, we're going to get into this later, I'm sure, but I was going to a therapist and having to remember, here's reality right here. I'm living in a circus, but reality is over here, and I have to get myself from this absolute chaos into this state of synergy and success, everything that I had always been enjoying. I can't tell you, I can't convey here how difficult that process was. Yet here I am today, and I've made it through that, and looking back, what I see is my job as a CDRE, this is why I took it so seriously, my job as a CDRE is so indescribably important to the people that I serve that it is a feeling of purpose and worth. Just in a simple conversation I can't describe to people. This is more to my journey. My dad died when I was 18. And then I had all these adopted kids, etc. And at various times in my life, I always felt like my life could end at any time. So what is my purpose? What am I doing? Is it just to go pick up another commission check this afternoon and buy myself another toy? Or is it really serving a need for the community, which in turn brings all of that other material wealth? I mean, that's a side thing. So for me, it's always been on what is the purpose of what I do every day when I wake up, and I'm calling people and sometimes getting yelled at because this is a highly contentious thing. I get weekend text from somebody who's perhaps, I'll use more colorful words, a little unhinged, but I remind myself, this is not personal. This is something they're going through, and how did I experience that, and how can I help them get to the other side? The favorite thing that I learned through the Alumni Institute and CDRE, and it was one of the judges who was speaking to us, and she said, you know, I used to be in criminal law, and in criminal law, I always saw the worst people in society on their best behavior. Now I'm in family law, and I see the best people in society on their worst behavior because they're going through some really difficult times. And I think that's so important for us to remember is we are shepherding people through this process and helping them salvage years and years of their work and their life. And they've given of themselves their time, which is a form of currency, to build this equity and wealth in a home, and divorce often destroys it. I can help save some of that.
Yeah. And when you're in those moments as a professional and you can recognize when the unhinged, right? When there is the behavior that shows up, you've got the context for that because you've walked in those shoes before. So I can only imagine, number one, how you're able to ground and center yourself because you know that it's not personal, but also you are able to be a source of strength for your clients where chaos is just swirling all around them. And like you said, the legal system just comes in and kind of takes over. I have a question. When you were going through your process, did you expect that that was going to happen? What was your expectation when you found yourself in a lawyer's office and now in a legal process that is going to determine your everything that you've worked for and your family and your kids? Did you go into it thinking that the court was going to have like as much control, or that this process was going to have that much control?
I did not. I was Pollyanna. I was, oh, this is going to be so wonderful. I can just offer this amount of money and we'll just settle because this is what the end is going to be. So why not just get there now? I'll come over and I'll fix my ex-wife's sprinkler when, it goes bad, or I just had this really naive, unrealistic thought that, I was giving up a dream. And this is what I think we have to remember for our clients is I was giving up this dream that I'd had all my life, that I was going to be financially set, that my kids were going to have college tuition through the properties that I'd purchased, and I was going to be having coffee in front of a large glass window or out on the courtyard with the same person that I'd been with all my life. Where does that go wrong? And we have people who are giving up a dream that they've had all their life. In fact, their entire identity can be built around this. And I was no different. I've been down this rabbit hole of reading books in psychology and understanding how our early childhood even affects what we think of ourselves and how the world around us is defined. And when someone's going through a divorce, this whole understanding of who they are gets shaken to the core. In addition to what's already happening with their routine being changed, destroyed, of where do I sleep at night, where do I park my car, what's my routine for brushing my teeth in the morning, where are my clothes, who is going to pay the bill for whatever. I mean, our whole life is built on an algorithm and a routine. And I know this is kind of getting in the weeds a little bit, but if you understand what is happening with us every day, when a normal person is buying and selling a home, that's already stressful. Like, I got to change my mailbox, I got to change my address, I got to change all of the credit cards where things are going, my auto drafts, my credit cards may get lost for a little bit. And so that's a high complexity. Where are my kids going to sleep? All your utilities have to be changed. Well, now you take that and you apply the fact that your family structure is being dismantled. It is so complex, it's mind-blowing. And this is why we see people break in the process. So their social network and their structure is critical to their survival. And we are part of that. Now, granted, we're only one piece and we have to stay in our lane, but we are part of that system that is getting it through. And the reason I took CDRE and my divorce specialization so seriously is, as I was looking back at all my career, and it was a wildly successful career before I got my CDRE, I recognized where I could have done better and what mistakes I made that were just ignorant mistakes. Realtors are out there doing it all the time because we don't know. We don't have that training. So when I found the Alumni Institute, I was like, I have got to do this because it's so much more than just a weekend of some classes and some donuts. This is repeated refresher, refining, and understanding all aspects of what's happening in family law and how this impacts our clients, so how we can navigate it for the people that we're serving. I am more proud of this designation and this training than anything else I've ever done in my career, because I think it serves the greatest purpose of anything that a real estate agent can do.
Wow. And you've done a lot. So that says a lot right there about the importance of the work that you're doing. How has your business changed? How has it, because you've now been a CDRE, you're going on, 4 or 5 years now. How has your business changed? What impact has this had on your business?
Real estate, we all know real estate's had a fundamental shift. Remember, before CDRE, I was running really high volume and a large team, and so everything was just kind of being farmed out, and it was kind of a numbers game, and that was partially the era that we were in, so it wasn't it was a great business model. But as technology started to change and my life was changing and business was changing, I started to see where I really enjoyed connecting with people and also enjoying my professionalism of my business. I no longer needed to give up so much of my life on the weekends and on the evenings to take care of unnecessary drama. I could confine that to a professional. I'm an expert, I'm a professional. I could confine that to business hours. I still work evenings and weekends a lot, but those are scheduled, or I'm taking requests and I'm plugging them into my calendar so that I'm still very available for all my people. But this has allowed me to be much more professional. And I see what we do as there's just general real estate, anybody can do that, and it's kind of commoditized of sorts. It's just like nobody knows the difference in the general real estate agent. And with the level of study and the practice and what I want to accomplish in my business and for people, I felt like I needed something very different to say, come to me as a professional because you trust me and you know that I have a commitment, a high integrity, ethical commitment to get through this super complex situation that nobody else is going to know how to do. That's what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. So here I am now, I'm on the Speakers Bureau, and I enjoy going into attorneys' offices and not showing up as, hey, where's my next commission check, or where's my next deal that you're going to give me? I don't even talk about that stuff. They seek me out. They get into situations and they tell their clients, I know who you need to talk to. That is the kind of business that I want to have, because that's saying I'm really bringing a high value, not just showing up for myself.
There's something in our industry, in the real estate industry, called speed to the lead, right? And so what you're describing is you are someone who is earning the business based on your merit versus based on being the fastest one to respond, and your life just being this free-for-all, your calendar just being a free-for-all, to it having structure, and as a professional should. What advice would you give to a realtor who is looking to get into the divorce niche?
This thing that first comes to mind is I hear people say, I'm giving real estate a try. And this is not something you're giving a try. You are committed to this. You are a professional, and this is like a graduate degree in real estate, and you have to be committed to it. There's a book called The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey, and it talks about all kinds of different scenarios where trust is critical, and some of it is like the world stage. But leaders, presidents, and people who are running entire countries, and how they worked together with a matter of trust between these two officials, and you would recognize some of the stories. When I stop and think about that, I think about how AI, technology, real estate, the speed to lead, all of these things, none of that is based on trust. That is based on how quickly can I get something from you. And in this world, the primary focus needs to be how much can I give to you in value that makes you so trusting in me that I've earned your business and you wouldn't think of going anywhere else. And that needs to be the primary focus at every point, because you can lose trust in a matter of minutes and with just a few words, but it takes years to gain trust. And that doesn't mean it's years before you're ever selling a house, but you need to study and you need to show up for the job prepared before you're just standing there with your hand held out. One of the things that I used to teach on when I did some university courses for some business students was the be, do, and have principle. And so much in real estate is reversed. It's, well, if I had all of these things, if I had more leads, if I had more money, whatever, I would be able to do these things, and then I could be a good realtor. But for us in CDRE especially, it is completely reversed. It's, I'm going to be the absolute best at what I do. I'm going to do those things on a daily basis. I'm going to practice my skill and my craft to a level of expertise that's unmatched, and then I'm going to have everything else. It just automatically comes to you, but we have to start in that order. This isn't a welfare program. This is actually showing up and doing the job. And what happens with so many new agents I'm training, and they don't touch this side of it because most of them won't make it through, is, hey, where's my next lead? What are you going to give me? If they stop and they say, I say, this is a question I'll ask them. Have you read the contract? And they'll say, yes, I have. Okay, then show me where this is located in the contract. And they can't find it. And that tells me, they may have scanned over it, but they didn't really study this contract. You're about ready to sit down with someone and ask them to sign for $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, and you don't even know the paperwork that you're having them sign. You need to study this daily and always go back and reference it and really learn your craft. That's only one example. Have you toured the neighborhoods? And these are all general type things, but agents don't typically do that. They don't show up for it. One of the things proud of this, I use Speechify, and I take the family law code for Oklahoma, and I put it in there, and I just let it play sometimes, and I'll hear something that's, oh, wait a minute, I want to go back and read that and kind of understand what it is. I'm not an attorney. I don't need to know those things, but it is really helpful to know what my attorneys are dealing with, so that I can have some basis or insight into what may be happening behind the scenes. That's what makes you a pro. This is the kind of thing that the Alumni Institute does with CDRE that makes the education so valuable. Aside from, you are not allowing the people giving it a try to enter the program. They don't even get in the program, much less be able to carry the designation. That is huge value to me as a professional.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Darryl, as being someone who went through the process, clearly, and you had a real estate portfolio. You didn't just go through the divorce process. You had a portfolio. And now, obviously, out on the other side where you've made it, you've also become a CDRE to help those that are going through the walk that you did. What would be 2 or 3 things that you would tell divorcing homeowners that you think that they need to know? You wish somebody had told you.
Don't join the circus. This becomes a circus of drama, of Facebook drama and the child drama, the school drama, everything has drama around it, and this is only a temporary phase in life that is rocking your world, but stay focused on what the end result is. You don't want to disparage your spouse when you have kids. You're saying things and doing things that will live forever in their minds. That's a parent. So stay above all of that. I want to be successful. One of the best ways for me to show that is to stay focused on the end result and be that leader through a process that's totally chaotic. And you have to stay focused on the end result. And there's so much that will distract you, and it can be anger towards another person. It sounds like more on the therapist side right now than the real estate side. But the real estate is a transaction that can work itself out. Divorce and the drama associated with it is what makes it such a circus. And I use that word over and over again because that's what happens. And you just don't want to be in the middle of that, even though you are. You kind of signed up for it.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. You were represented by an attorney, and your ex-wife was also represented by an attorney, right? You've also amassed all of this knowledge. You educate lawyers now on the real estate process as it relates to family law. What would you say are a couple of things that divorce attorneys need to know as it pertains to real estate?
It shocks me how many times divorce attorneys say something to the effect of, it doesn't really matter who the agent is. It's just that they don't know. They don't understand the level of ethical practice and decisions that have to take place on the back end of avoiding bias towards the party that may be acting out, that may be looking like the one that's unhinged right now, and how they can be harmed in the process, about how your client, and it doesn't matter which side you're on, can get the short end of the stick because the real estate agent doesn't even understand. They're not intentionally trying to harm one side or the other. They just think they're doing the right thing, but they're not checking their bias at their door. They're not sticking to a code of ethics, which we have different here, our own separate code of ethics, CDRE, because they may be selling another house to one of the parties who's in the process of getting a divorce. We would have to have a whole several-hour podcast to touch the surface of the kinds of ethical dilemmas that can create, because now you have someone who's being paid on multiple transactions, but perhaps one-sided. And so it's not in the outspouses or the in-spouses, whatever the ex is, it's not in their best interest to have something pushed through. But as a realtor, you not only have commission that's based on two sales, you have new ethical responsibilities and legal obligations for another party that is separate from the divorcing party. I think that's probably enough to just say there's a can of worms there that you do not want to be a part of. And attorneys don't really know or think about that because we've done it to ourselves in the real estate business. It's just like, oh, we're going to run an ad for you. We're going to have an open house, and we're going to put a sign up, and mine's going to have glowing lights, and I can put sparkles and balloons, and that has nothing to do with selling a house anymore. That is just the bling. What really matters is the expertise underneath or behind that sign that's going to negotiate through the process and protect the party's interest.
Yeah. I mean, if you're representing two people as their fiduciary and you are straddling that line of being neutral, and the appearance of impropriety is so important as well, which is completely acceptable by our ordinary code of ethics as realtors. If you are then taking one of the spouses out on the weekends trying to find them another home, maybe even with their new significant other, now you're under contract on a purchase with one of your clients contingent on the sale of the marital home. Now the appearance of impropriety is just through the roof, let alone if that gets flaunted in front of the other spouse that you're not representing and who maybe doesn't have even a happier place to go, and it's being flaunted, it's being on social media and that sort of thing. You can see how very quickly this thing can spiral completely out of control. And it ultimately costs the clients more money because the distrust of the realtor can ultimately lead to completely seizing up, lack of trust, lack of cooperation, more attorney's fees, more trips into court, all of that.
Well, and we know how many divorce sales don't close if there's not a CDRE involved. I mean, our numbers are much higher. And I learned why when I started to go through the process and really develop my education there. But Laurel, I only talked about one tiny piece of those ethics of selling a house to one of the people who's getting a divorce. I've been in some really complex situations where attorneys were calling and relying on me because I had been in the house. For example, I was appointed to a case, and they're just going to, they're thinking in their world of, normal house, we're selling it. I get out there and there's a hoarder situation, or they're not allowing showings, or it's not being maintained. Even to, divorces, typically the maintenance of the house is suffering, but there's certain times where it's in danger of either. I had a difficult foreclosure situation where we were up against a time frame that was an emergency, and I had to make everyone move. I relied on our CDRE community to give me some input on some letters that I'd written. That's the feather in my cap, is I got that one done, and I would not have been able to do it if I had not been a CDRE. So if you're an attorney and you have an in-spouse or out-spouse, it may seem on the surface like it's just going to be a simple process, but when I show up with pictures and I'm documenting things, giving you the information you need to take to court, if necessary. The beauty of it is you probably won't need to go to court, because now you have the information you need to get the progress or the settlement that you need moving forward. I have heard over and over again from attorneys say, we wouldn't have gotten this one done without you, or you saved hours and hours of work because you were able to reduce that conflict in a situation or in an area that could have really blown up. And so that it's really developed a good, strong relationships with the people the attorneys that I'm working for. And again, I attribute this is a CDRE commercial for me, because I am so thankful that my business has developed in this manner and I have this as a resource.
Well, you are a phenomenal gift to our community, Darryl, and thank you very much for all the work that you're doing out there. And we're honored to have you as a part of it. So thank you. And this has been extremely helpful to anyone who's watching. So
thank you, Laura.
Thanks again.